I am one of your hosts, David Gilliland. We have the privilege of having Nick McLean, the founder of Four Pillars Investments, with us today. We're just so delighted to have him. Welcome to the show, Nick. He has, like the rest of us, been through the struggle. Nick, how many employees? What's your company size right now?
Well, we only have 3 employees at Four Pillars Investors, but we've purchased 7 companies in our history, and with the companies that are in our portfolio right now, I would say the total employee count is well over 100.
And they're a different kind of investor. So listeners, you might be thinking, oh, one of these who just has a portfolio, throws some money at a thing and see where it sticks. This is a group that comes in and works hands-on to help each one of these companies thrive and grow and become what they've always wanted to become. So that's what I love about what they do. So 3 up in the investment side, and then dive deep in with each one of these teams and help them really grow. Tell us just a little bit, Nick, about the types of companies you've been investing in.
To date, it's mostly been manufacturing. My background from college was industrial engineering, which is about making processes more efficient, standardizing them, etc. Historically, that was almost always done in the manufacturing setting. On top of that, I'm in the Kansas City, Missouri area, the greater Midwest. In that area, you can't walk too far without running into a manufacturing firm. Those two combined are why we have so much manufacturing and metal fabrication in our portfolio. That being said, we really love the lower middle market. We think there's so much opportunity. And also, you mentioned about how we like to work hands-on with the companies that we invest in. Part of the reason for that is the owners that we work with in the lower middle market, they like working with us. I mean, they want somebody that's as excited about their business as they are. And also, it's lonely sometimes being the president of the company. Now they have a shoulder to maybe not cry on, but at least a shoulder to lean on whenever there's a complicated issue or just a tough day.
Wow, Nick, that's so real. I mean, you've been growing your company now since 2015. You guys have been doing this work and continue to invest and help others. How was it for you in your journey? Like, what was it like when you first got started? Who did you lean on? Tell us a little bit about that process.
Well, first I will say that I was very lucky. Early on in the days before even Four Pillars was founded, I got hooked up with my current partner. His name's Thomas. And so I've never had to go through this journey alone. It has always been me and him. And we're both married, so we have spouses as well. But I think most business owners will quickly admit that the spouse is not always the person you want to go talk about all the struggles you're having with your business. But as we, really in the first acquisition that we made, there were times where, I'll just be honest with you, we struggled to make payroll, or I was nervous about making payroll. And at the time, I'm thinking, man, I am doing this wrong. This was a terrible investment. What was I thinking? I'm no good at this. I'm not going to make it in private equity. Until I realized, or at least started talking to other business owners about how common it is to struggle to make payroll at one time or another. What I came to realize is that I wasn't the outlier. The outlier is the person that doesn't have to struggle with that or doesn't get stressed by it. That was an important learning because it just shows the really up and down nature of owning and running a business. I think there are so many people out there that they think being a business owner is kind of like what you see on Facebook, where people are always posting about their vacations, or my son just got accepted to this great school, or won this basketball tournament or whatnot. You don't see the daily struggles. That's really how it is being a business owner. You want to own, as from the outside, sure, it might look like you're doing great, but on the inside, there's some turmoil. It's just a fact of life.
Yeah. Boy, isn't that the truth, right? And once you take on business ownership, you feel that. You just feel it, right? I don't think the weight ever fully comes off your shoulders. It's just always there. But it's one that can make us a little stronger. So as you were struggling with it, like, maybe you could take us to a time. Yeah, I remember one time we were struggling to meet payroll, came across this piece and boom, this is what was going on. Here's how I felt through it. This is what it was like. And maybe even some how you pulled it off, how you got out of that trench, and then later, maybe you've gotten to a point where that's not the struggle anymore. What were the key things to help you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, for us, it was really a combination or a culmination of several events. I think there was, maybe one bucket of events that was caused by us, or it was within our control, and there were several others that were outside of our control. I think the main thing that we did to get out of that was really just be open, not only with our customers, but also with some of our suppliers. As it relates to our customers, we had to be honest that we were probably going to miss some dates. We were working overtime, working as hard as we can to hit those dates, but unfortunately, just might not be able to hit those. When it comes to the suppliers, it was open conversations there. It was maybe, we expected to get paid from this customer at the end of the month. They're telling us they're not going to pay us for another 30 days. We need some help on this invoice. Don't cut us off because there's more work coming down the pike. So as I think about what got us through that, really, I think it comes down to open communication, as well as just being forthcoming and not hiding in the closet and hoping your problems are going to go away. I hope that addresses your question.
Oh boy, does it ever. Like, I think a lot of times that first piece you talked about, you said, hey, you're not alone, but it feels like it. You feel like you're alone in business. You're carrying it all on your shoulders. Now you had a partner, and some of these others just feel deeply alone. Sometimes we think that aloneness is the right way to feel and the right way to act. But it sounds like you started to see all those around you, both those you served and those who you were buying from, maybe even your team members, open conversation to say, hey, we're in this together. It takes all of us to succeed. Uh, Tell me more about that. How did you pull your team in during this time? Because it's their payroll. Were they aware, or was this I wasn't ready to share with them?
It was definitely more of the latter. We talked about this, with the management team. The question was, how much do we share with the folks that are, whose jobs are on the line? And our belief at the time is that without a clear answer to some of these questions, it wasn't appropriate to bring it up, because all it was going to create was more uncertainty, anxiety, etc. For that reason, we wanted to be strategic about when was the right time to share that level of information. As you mentioned earlier, though, that concept of putting everything on your shoulders, absolutely agree with that. Couldn't agree with it more. There are some business owners that I've talked to personally that will tell me they believe that in order to succeed, or just kind of a cost of entry of being a business owner, is that you have to put everything on your shoulder. You can't rely on other people. You can't do this, you can't do that. And I'm here to tell you that, that's your prerogative, but that's not necessarily how I would encourage a business owner to act, because even though it can be lonely at the top, it doesn't have to be that way. You just have to be thoughtful and intentional about, who you are going to let into your circle, because you can't just let anybody in. Clearly you can't just let anybody in, but you can find the right people to put in your circle that will help you get through those challenges. That's my opinion.
I love that. Thank you. We don't have to be alone, right? That's one of the keys. Let's pull the right people into that circle. You mentioned that first time, or that beginning, when you're feeling like you weren't making payroll, and we're talking about these investment companies you invest in. You see them as your employees. They are. You're diving in. Your actual ownership, hands on, and doing. Um, that first round, you felt like, oh, we can't really share with them. We don't want to create anxiety. Were you hinting at that maybe later you've shifted a little bit in your thoughts? Have you moved? How do you engage the team now in the real numbers and things going on?
The best way that we engage them is just by talking about what our backlog is. For the manufacturing firms, typically it's always about backlog. A lot of the folks that are actually making the widgets, so to speak, what makes them most confident, most secure in their roles is knowing that if they make 5 widgets today, there's going to be 5 more widgets that they need to make tomorrow, 5 more widgets to make the day after. So my role, I think, which is a big part of any CEO's role, because I was CEO of that business at the time. It wasn't just we weren't just on the board. I was the actual CEO. A big part of my job was to forget about all the noise of some of the challenges we were having and make sure that I was building the backlog to give our employees the confidence that if we told them we really need to work hard to get these 5 widgets out the door, they would. What I mean by that is, sometimes, not sometimes, I mean, it's human nature, I think, to if you see that there's only 5 widgets that you need to make, slow down on those, because what are you going to do whenever they're done? It's like you want to slow down because you don't want your pile to be completely empty. However, the struggle was that we needed that pile gone as quickly as possible so that we could invoice it, so that we could, get on to the next project. And again, that's why I took it on me to make sure that there was confidence on the part of our employees that even if that pile was depleted today, there was going to be a new pile that they had to work on tomorrow. And who's to say how effective was that? I mean, was that a meaningful driver in helping us get through it? I don't know. However, I do know a meaningful driver in helping us get through it was the fact that we were able to put those piles on future days and get that backlog growing, so that we could not only continue to feed the employees that we had, but to grow the employees and get to be an even larger company.
That's great. How big did that company start when you began working with them? Where did they get to?
Well, I would say that I have to think back to what it was. I mean, I would probably say it was about 20 frontline workers whenever we acquired it. We're at 30 right now on the first shift. We've also started a second shift that is much smaller, maybe only 5 to 10 people, and they're not working a full shift. In terms of revenues, what I would say is not only are we growing revenues, we've entered an entire new product line, or went after an entire new line of customers. So not only are we trying to grow the legacy business, we've entered an entire new line of business, which is so helpful, because as you can imagine, there's always these ups and downs. And now whenever one is up, the other can be down, and we don't get hit by it too hard.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So you had to go through the growing pains, basically, of doubling the size of that business over this time period, and bringing on new people, working with them. And it sounds like you found kind of a key metric that if they focused on and nailed, it would ensure for them job security, good steady work, good pay to take home, those kinds of things that they were interested in. Is that fair then?
Absolutely.
Nice.
Another something else we try to keep in mind is that there are some folks that they want to work 8 hours a day, no more. There are other folks that they want all the overtime you can get. We tried to create a company, not just a company, but we tried to create a base of customers to where we always needed those folks as much as they could work and provide the overtime to the people that want it. Because in this labor market, it's very hard to find people, generally speaking. You can make an argument that it's even harder to find skilled tradespeople. So the last thing we want to do is, if we want somebody that wants 4 extra hours, to not have enough work to keep that person busy, because he's the type of person that might go find a job elsewhere, and we're gonna be in a bad spot.
Yeah. Trying to find a way to align what work can do for them, to the things that they most care about. Like, can we get those lined up so that our best people stay? In working with all these different companies, sometimes people could think, well, you're looking at this as just like a spreadsheet business. What's the finances, how it can crank out? But you're obviously jumping in as a CEO in so many different businesses. They would have a different purpose, each one of these businesses, or a different vision of where they want to go. How do you distill that? How do you, first of all, get it clear enough for each of these different businesses and keep it clear in your mind? Oh yeah, this is who I'm serving now, and they're a little different than the other ones. This is what matters to them. What do you do to manage those competing visions, in essence, for the various companies you're running?
Well, first off, I'll say that luckily, Four Pillars has grown enough to where I'm not CEO of any of our portfolio companies at present. I mean, could I be in the future? Sure, but that generally speaking, that's not the role that I'm going to play. As you more to the heart of your question, though, for us, a lot of it starts around developing a strategic plan. Just which in our mind is pretty much basic blocking and tackling. Business fundamentals. And sometimes we'll talk to businesses, management teams, and they're all about growth. All five or seven people sitting in the room, like, we want to grow, we want to grow. You ask the first person, well, what's growth mean to you? Well, I think if we can grow 5%, grow our revenues 5%, that would be amazing. You talk to the person next to them, I want to double revenues next year. And then you talk to the third person, I want EBITDA growth. I want EBITDA to grow from 10% to 12% on a margin perspective. I think you get the point that even though everybody is aligned in that the fact that they want growth, it all looks different. That's why working with the team to develop a strategic plan, so you have clear goals, a clear mission, vision, all the different components that are encompassed in a strategic plan are so important. We've already talked about getting people, how important it is to get people rowing in the same direction. This is, I guess, a tool that you can use in order to help that, and not only make sure that they're rowing in the right direction today or tomorrow, but make sure that they're rowing in the right direction 3 months from now, 6 months, a year, 2 years.
I love that. The kind of clarity and alignment, right? That the team needs to be fully aligned and clear about exactly what the goal is. Now they're not pulling against each other, they're pulling with each other. So thanks so much for sharing that. What a nugget.
Well, in one point though, you made a great point there that I don't want to gloss over. You said people pulling in different directions. A lot of times people are pulling in different directions and they don't even know it. And that is even more challenging because you don't realize it. So how can you correct something if you don't even know what's going on? So I just didn't want to gloss over that point because it's so critical. I mean, the first step is just knowing whether or not you're pulling in the right direction.
Yeah, we make a ton of assumptions. I mean, in business, in life, all over, right? We just assume, wait, we've been married for 20 some odd years. Of course we're aligned. Maybe we should talk. Maybe we should get clear, right? We can
Exactly.
align better and have an even better time together in a marriage, in a business, wherever. Quick transition on that. We've all been growing our businesses, and it affects more than the business, the kind of time and attention we put there. Sometimes it affects our personal life. In fact, daily it does. How was that for you? What are the kinds of things along the way that you're like, okay, I didn't know it was going to be like that. That was bumpy, and we had to figure something out. Talk to me about that.
Well, I actually think that I might have a slightly different perspective on this. For me, it was much bumpier when I was not an entrepreneur. For me personally, I like to have some level of control. And so, for example, my daughter's sick right now because I'm not in an 8 to 5 job. I don't have to call my boss and say, hey, I need some hours off. I can just rearrange my schedule so that I can take care of her if I need be. And for me, that was definitely a key driver in what I consider to be success. How I define success for myself. It's not just money or fame or power or whatever. It's really being in control of my own schedule. I would much rather be able to spend time with my kids, be at the front door whenever they get home from or get dropped off from the bus, and say hi to them if nothing else, and then get back on my laptop and continue my work. I mean, that's a level of success. I mean, that's a big part of how I define success, is being able to be there for my family, as opposed to the folks that take the mindset, okay, I'm going to work 80 hours per week. My kids are going to never know me, but I'm going to be a great grandparent. I'm not being critical. I mean, that's perfectly fine if that's how you're wired. But for me, I want to be present in my kids' lives, even if that means I'm going to sacrifice some professional.
Oh, I love that. Again, you have clarity around what your goals really are so that you're not playing mixed signals, running different ways, getting pulled. But when you were about to miss payroll, did it feel like a bit of a crunch to keep the same kind of freedom with your family and life? Or did
Oh
it feel
yeah.
like, okay, we struggled through that?
Yeah, I mean that's I didn't know this, but I mean it was Father's Day of either 2018 or 2019. It was one of the weekend nights, and I'm just laying in bed thinking, what if that check doesn't come in? Or, what if a new check does, what if a new bill from a vendor does come in that we have to pay right away? What are we going to do? Like, how much personal money am I going to be able to put into the business to make sure that we can hit that payroll? And what I will tell you is that was definitely a time where I did kind of hunker down into the corner. And I really don't know what my wife would have thought about that weekend, or if she noticed any detectable difference in me. However, I will tell you that the former president of the company, Southwest Steel, he told me really there was only one or two times that he's ever seen me get flustered. I'm a pretty even keeled guy. I consider myself, a very boring guy actually, but regardless, our former president said there was only one or two times, and he said, "Yeah, it was Father's Day of about 2018 or 2019 that weekend." And I was just surprised. Like I really was very surprised that he remembered and he knew it was that exact weekend.
Oh, good. I mean, it just proves that you felt the weight like the rest of us. Um, but I love that you kept a focus on what success was for you. You had defined success clearly. That was something you measured and looked at and watched, and it meant time with your family when they needed you. And you were bothered just having the thoughts while you were home. You didn't tell us a story that you were at the office doing this work through Father's Day. I love that. I love the focus on what matters most to you. Thanks for sharing that. Um, if you were to share, any last piece, I mean, you shared a lot of wisdom with us, but I know you've actually created some things that people can get their hands on and look at and read about how to help their businesses succeed or how to prepare them for a sale. How do we tap into some of the great things you've created, Nick?
Yeah, thanks for that. First off, what I will say is that I've watched a lot of videos out there, and I see a lot of gurus with these fancy cars that they're talking about, and all you need to do is take my course, and you're going to be making six figures monthly or whatever. And unfortunately, I'm just not that guy. I really thought that there was a need for somebody that's worked in the private equity trenches to really let people know what it's like, what you can expect. Because of that, launched a YouTube channel, which not it's pretty humble. I've got about 2,000 subscribers, so certainly not a sensation or anything like that. But more importantly, it's a library where people can get to know my approach, get to know about private equity and whatnot, and that can be found at my handle at Nick for Pillars, and that's spelled out NickFourPillars. Also on X as well. And as proud as I am of the YouTube content and whatnot, perhaps what I'm even more proud of is just launched a book. Which, if you think there are a few nuggets of wisdom here, I really feel like I tried to pull every nugget of wisdom I possibly have and put it in that book. So if you read that book and you say there's no nuggets in there, then that's a pretty sad state of affairs for myself. But hopefully, if you do read it, you'll find at least one or two nuggets.
Well, Nick, we just really appreciate you being here on the Seven Figure Journey podcast and sharing some of your journey with us. You've been through it a few rounds. You're doing it with other companies, and we enjoy the lessons that you shared with us. Thanks again. And just as a final call to all the listeners, let's try to find a way to lead our teams, to care about those teams, and to make sure we take care of ourselves and the ones around us as we're growing these businesses. Success is measured in many ways.
Well, thank you for having me.